Hey YouTubers, this is Garrowin with another video. In this video I'm going to be just doing a quick overview of Windows ME. I know it's a really old operating system. It's not supported by Microsoft anymore. There's no updates being published for it, and in my opinion it's probably the worst version of Windows ever released, period. I ran it on a personal computer for a few weeks and then started having random intermittent problems, uh, and so we just upgraded straight from that to Windows XP. But anyway, I found an old ISO of the disk I used to have, and I thought I'd throw it into a virtual machine here and let you guys take a look at it. I've given it a gigabyte of RAM, which is way more than we had in the computer when we were running it, but I figured, you know what, that'll give it plenty to work with. 64 megabytes of video memory. If you decide that you want to put Windows ME in a virtual machine, be warned that VirtualBox does not support Windows 9X or Windows ME in the VirtualBox Guest Editions software that installs video and audio drivers and things in the guest operating system. There are drivers available, but they're kind of tricky. You've got to just Google them, you'll find them. I managed to get one of them working so that we could actually have some kind of a display, because by default it wanted to display in 16 colors at a resolution of 640 by 480. Here's one thing that I noticed. When we used Windows ME, I was like 11, so I really was not technically conscientious about security and things of that nature. Here's the first thing I noticed. I haven't set up any user accounts on this computer. This is a fresh install of Windows ME. Alright, you can put something in here, hit OK, nothing happens. See, it lets you create a user account right here, but let's log off real quick. Log off. Alright, let's pretend that I'm just some random guy just walked up to this computer. All you gotta do is hit cancel and it logs you in. Alright, not only that, but this default user account that didn't even enter a password, view entire contents, has access to the entire hard drive and can do whatever they want. I'll show you why that's a bad thing here if it's not already obvious to you here shortly. Alright, so this version that I have, I don't know if this is what Windows ME shipped with all the time, but this particular copy that I had came with Internet Explorer version 5.5. At the time it was the latest version. It worked pretty good. If you try out Windows ME on another computer or in a virtual machine, you are going to find out that using Internet Explorer 5 is pretty much impossible. I think the only website that I have visited that still looks normal is Google. Alright, you go to bing.com. Here's another thing. You can sit here and install all these certificates if you want, and it'll eventually stop bugging the crap out of you. But every time there's a new certificate, you know, unless you just feel like hitting yes a whole bunch of times. Let's go ahead and get that first one. There we go. So now Bing actually doesn't look half bad after we accept all those certificates. I'll chalk that crap rendering up to the default video driver. You cannot get Firefox or Google Chrome for Windows ME anymore. When you go to their websites, it'll just tell you your system doesn't meet the requirements. Google Chrome, their page says for Windows 8, 7, Vista, and XP. So you're not going to be able to use Google Chrome on Windows ME. So you're pretty much stuck with Internet Explorer 5 unless you also happen to have a copy of, say, Netscape Navigator or something laying around. For those of you who were not around when Windows ME was on computers or may not have heard of Netscape Navigator was what would become the Mozilla Foundation and the Firefox web browser. But before there was Mozilla and Firefox, there was Netscape Navigator. And the coolest part about that browser, in my opinion, was just the comments going by the end. Anyway, so you got Windows Media Player here. Everybody remember Windows, well, Internet Explorer 5 rendering engine here. Everybody remember when Windows Media Player had skins to make it look pretty cool? I always like this one. So there's the same software, we just put a skin on it, and you just click this button and it goes back to normal. I'm not actually going to play this song because I recorded another video where I played this just kind of goofing around, not really talking or narrating, and apparently even though they included it, a 30-second clip of it for free in Windows ME, somebody owns a copyright to it, and I got a notification from YouTube that I can't monetize that video. So, but it does come with one free song. Probably one of the best things about Windows ME, in my opinion, though, is the Pinball Game. Oh my God. Love the Pinball Game. When I ran Windows ME, I actually looked for a copy of that Pinball Game just so Vista. I actually went and looked for and found a copy of that Pinball Game just so I could play it on newer operating systems. And you know, you got your general stuff: Internet Hearts, Reversi, Spades, Checkers, Backgammon, Free Cell. I actually think this is the first version of Windows that had some of these internet games, and I also believe Windows ME was one of the first versions of Windows to require a license key. I do believe Windows 95 and 98 did not ask for a license key. You could just install it and go with it. Windows Update does not function anymore. You can't even pull the updates that do exist for it. I'm sure maybe you could go download them manually on a different computer, but you saw what happens whenever you try to actually go to it from the computer, and there is no Windows Update service that runs in the background. In this day and time when Windows ME was out, most people were connecting via dial-up, so when you first install it, you're going to get a whole lot of prompts asking you to buy internet service from other people, such as America Online, AT&T, blah blah blah, and most things are going to default to asking you to set up a dial-up connection. You can use a LAN connection, you just have to, explicitly specify that you are using a LAN and not a dial-up. It does come with WordPad. I also believe this is the first version of Windows that came with Windows Movie Maker. Alright, we're going to exit that. So it did come with Windows Movie Maker. Alright. Overall, I was not particularly unhappy with the features that were in Windows ME. It was just so unstable that it counteracted all of the good things about it. The fact that it came with internet games and the pinball and the Windows Movie Maker, and that it supported LAN out of the box without you having to, kind of finagle some weird stuff. It was just really unstable. Like, in the process of just installing some video drivers for this thing, I got blue screens left or right. I had issues when we actually used it as the primary operating system on a computer, where Internet Explorer would just cause the whole computer to freeze up. But if you opened my computer and type a web address in, it would become Internet Explorer and function just fine. But if you actually double clicked that icon, nothing would happen, and it would just sit there, and eventually you'd have to do a hard reset. Also, you will notice in one of the dialogues when you're installing the operating system that they're aware of how unstable some things are, because it says if the computer stops responding for more than a couple of minutes, just restart the computer. So they're telling you right there that they know you might have to do a hard reset on your computer because it might just decide to freeze up. So the instability, in my opinion, was the downfall of Windows ME. It had some cool features, like I said, these games and LAN access and things, but the instability, I think, was probably the biggest downfall. Now I'm going to get on to the topic of now I'm going to get onto a topic that's actually kind of controversial for a lot of Windows users. I'm guessing probably because it's just something that's new. For those of us that are Linux users, we've been accustomed to the fact that your default user account does not have root access to the system. For as long as I've been using Linux, that has always been the case, even in Ubuntu, where all you have to do is enter your sudo password. By default, you don't have access to the root file system, and even if you can access it, you still have to prefix those commands with sudo and enter your sudo password. All the way up through XP, Windows XP, as far as I'm aware, there was no kind of user account control. The default user had complete access to everything on the hard drive. You just saw here on Windows ME that you don't even have to have a user account on the computer. You can just hit cancel at the login screen and log in with this default user account. And you still got, even though you did nothing to authenticate yourself, you still got complete and total access to necessary system files on the computer. This is where the argument for user account control, UAC as it's abbreviated in Windows Vista, comes into play. In this kind of setup, the same kind of setup that is present in Windows XP, let me show you how easy it is for a default user to just walk up to your computer and in just a couple of seconds just wreck your life. This computer is now toast. Alright, it's going to take a second for this command to run, but you just saw that was one command executed by a default user that did not authenticate to the machine. And it's allowing me to effectively nuke the hard drive of this computer. Now, if I was using Windows Vista or 7 or 8 or any version, any Linux distribution for that matter, you wouldn't be able to do this. You see here finished, alright? Click the close button in the corner. Alright. We would not be able to run that command. It might execute, and it might delete some files that you actually had access to, like files in that user's profile. So, I mean, they might wreck your user profile, but they would not render the entire operating system useless. As it is, we have pretty much, yeah, there's the quick launch is gone. None of that's working. If we launch Internet Explorer, it doesn't exist. Alright. If we restart the computer, if it'll even restart. So it is actually going to restart. That's what we get. That is why user account control, I think, was probably the best decision that Microsoft ever made when they introduced Windows Vista. I know that at the time it was very controversial, and I know that in the hands of normal users it's about as effective as not having it, because eventually people just get used to just saying okay, yes, continue, and they don't even bother reading what it says. But it is there, it is in place, and for the people who actually pay attention to it, it might and you know, it helps people be aware of what's going on their computer. And if something happens and it requests access to their necessary system files, and that was not their intent, they have the option of saying cancel, terminating that process, and saving themselves from this kind of result. So restore it to snapshot 2. Let's go ahead and boot it back up here. But so yeah, Windows ME, Windows Millennium Edition. Came out before Windows 2000/NT, I believe. I think it came out before NT. I'm not quite sure. It still uses the FAT32 file system by default. In fact, I think if you have a smaller hard drive, it actually defaults to like FAT16, because when I installed it, it actually asked me if I wanted to enable large hard drive support. So it may even use FAT16 by default and FAT32 if you have a larger hard drive. It is still based on MS-DOS, so not quite as many utilities available to those of you who want to use the command line. You still have some basic things like ipconfig and ping, things of that nature. But overall, for its day, Windows ME had a lot of good features to it. I think its biggest downfall was security, which I just demonstrated, and the instability. The instability was the biggest thing, in my opinion, that overcame the fact that it came with Windows Movie Maker and a new Windows Media Player with skins and some games that had never been on there before, and things of that nature. But so if you ever hear somebody talk about Windows ME, the worst operating system ever made, the worst version of Windows ever made, this is it. I mean, so I just wanted to record a video to kind of show you guys around it a little bit. Yeah, it's being slow on me. Yeah, my computer's being fine. It's just Windows ME's being slow. Lord mercy. So I'm sure if we stuck around long enough, we'd probably get a blue screen of death. I got a couple of those just putting video drivers on it. But if you guys have any comments, questions, suggestions, feel free to post them in the comments section below, and I'll try to get to them as necessary. And as always, this is Garrowin out. Y'all have a good one.